Thank you for joining us tonight. Just a little bit of background. I have been a bird nerd forever. I remember as a kid watching the birds and that. Grew up in a very rural area in Ohio, and so there was not a lot of nature education happen there. So it was, and obviously we didn't have computers and that back then to look it up. So a lot of my more formal experiences have come afterwards. Joan asked me earlier when we were talking, how I learned it out all. And a lot of it I learned when the experience happens. I see the birds doing whatever, or I want this bird to come. So I start researching and why are they doing that? And so it's just watching the birds is something you're going to continually learn. A lot of people start out, hummingbirds tend to be that bird that gets a lot of people into the hobby. And then the hummingbirds leave in the fall and you're looking at that sad pole now. And so, well, maybe I'll put a bird feeder up, and it just grows and grows. So bluebirds have been a special interest for me. My yard is everything a bluebird habitat should not be. So I'm here to tell you, if you provide the things they need, you can bring them in. Currently, right now, there's 7 of them wintering over with us. Bluebirds don't leave. A lot of people think they migrate away in the wintertime, and they don't. They stay here. They do live more communally. So if you have a nest box out there, you may start noticing early in the morning bluebirds, one after another, popping out of there, because they will live there. They just pile up on top of each other at night for warmth. With these storms and nasty weather coming in, you may even see them during the day going in the house. And you're like, what's going on? There's 5 of them in there now. They're not fighting. They're not going to suffocate each other. They're just going to pile up for body warmth. So when I'm asked when is the best time to put up a nesting box for bluebirds, my answer is always going to be yesterday, no matter what day of the year you ask me, because they need those boxes year round. Also, a lot of us have been taught, oh, take your nest boxes down in the winter. I don't know who came up with that idea, but don't take your nest boxes down in the winter. Leave those up so they have those to roost in and to shelter. So we're going to start off a little bit. There are 3 species of bluebird: the eastern, the western, and the mountain. The only one we're going to worry about is the eastern bluebird, because that's the bluebird that we have here in southern Maryland. They are easy to identify your male from your female. Hopefully you can see this well enough. The bright blue one is going to be the male, and that's the case in most birds. The female tends to be more muted because she's typically the one setting on the nest, so we want her to be a little less conspicuous. So the female is going to have more of a gray background, gray back, and you'll notice a little white eye ring around her eye. Cool little birds. A lot of people confuse the blue jay with them. The blue jay is going to be blue and white. It's a larger bird, has a crest on it, closer, more like the size of a robin. The bluebird's going to be a smaller. It's going to have that blue back and that rusty underneath there. So you've got the top of the breast is rusty color, and then it goes on down into a white. So that's our bluebird. That's the one we're talking about tonight. So I mentioned my yard is not set up for bluebirds. Bluebirds traditionally like a lot of clear open spaces. That's why you see a lot of bluebird houses around golf courses and farm fields, things like that. However, with time, we have spent so much time taking trees down and making parking lots and things that birds can't be quite as choosy as they used to be. So they're looking for basically food, shelter, and water. And if you provide all of those things, even if your yard is heavily treed as mine is, you can entice them in. As far as food, often we'll have people say, I see bluebirds, but they never come to my feeders. So then I ask, what are you feeding? Well, just black oil sunflower. Black oil sunflower is the one seed that will feed the biggest variety of birds, but it will not feed all of them. Not all birds are able to crack shells. And that tends to be those birds that eat a lot of insects, berries, things like that, which is our bluebirds. So the first thing you need to do is get some feeders up with some food that your bluebirds can eat. So we're going to talk about some of those options. So this one is what we call our no mess. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that well, but it's basically sunflower chips. This one also has peanuts in it. Bluebirds are huge peanut lovers. Bluebirds and cardinals both. Who would have ever thought, right? But they do love peanuts. This one has cranberries and cherries in it, and it also has some suet nuggets. Any of our birds that eat insects will also eat suet. So adding a food that is already shelled is a good option for those bluebirds. Then mealworms. This is a bag of the dried mealworms here. They also love the live. They actually enjoy the live more so. They are more packed with protein, but this is a good backup. I keep dried in my feeders all the time. My bluebird, my live ones, I bring out twice a day. When I bring out the live ones, what I do is yell, Mama Blue, Papa Blue, and they will come out. They know when they hear that call that I'm bringing the good stuff. If you can whistle, I can't. You can train them to come to your whistle. So you go out, you whistle, give them the good stuff. We also, I forgot to grab this, we just got these in. It's a birdie bag. And so when you take the live mealworms out, you can ring the chow bell, and they'll start to learn that you can go out the door, ring the bell, and they'll come flying in because they know you have the good stuff. Suet, as I mentioned, everybody's probably familiar with the little suet squares. This one is super suet that has dried mealworms in it as well. And if squirrels are an issue, we have it in a hot pepper formula. Birds have different taste receptors, so this is not going to bother them, but the squirrels will get the point real quickly.
Excuse me, Barbara.
Uh-huh.
Make sure everybody's on mute. I hear a teaching
If everybody hit the mute button in the bottom left-hand corner of their screen, that would help. There we go.
There we
Thank
go.
you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so another one is bark butter bits. This is a type of suet nugget. If you have not tried bark butter bits, I encourage you to stop in one of the stores and pick up a bag of these. Over 170 species of birds eat the bark butter bits. Bluebirds absolutely love bark butter bits. And again, we have them in a hot pepper formula. We have a lot of customers this year that have Orioles spending the winter with them, and they're loving the bark butter bits. So definitely give that a try. Another one here. We have cylinders. I know a lot of you are probably familiar with our cylinder feeders. We have a lot of different styles, but basically this is a block, and it's held together with gelatin. This particular one is our bug nut and berry. So it's everything in there that the bluebirds love. We have the mealworms in there. The suet nuggets are in there, those bark butter bits I mentioned, peanuts and sunflower seeds. So the bluebirds absolutely love this one at my house. And then we're going to talk about what do you put that food in. Bluebirds can cling to, say, a suet feeder. This one is just the plain cages like you're probably familiar with. And this one, you can put those blocks of suet in. So the bluebirds can't eat from there. It's a little bit of a challenge for them because they would prefer to be perched on something that they can eat from. So if you're going to put that, if you can put a branch or something underneath it to give them a perch, If it's cold, if it's nasty, if it's snowy, like they're talking the next few days, your bluebirds will cling and eat from there. So they can. It's just not the easiest way for them to eat. So with those bark butter bits I mentioned to you, you can put them in any kind of feeder, something like a little cup like this. This is just a weather guard. I know a lot of stores sell these kind of things as squirrel baffles. They are not squirrel baffles. The squirrel will get right beyond that. They are weather guards is what they're intended for. So those, you can do trays. Trays are really cool. If you've never had a tray feeder, highly recommend adding a tray feeder. All of your birds can eat from a tray feeder. Your bluebirds, blue jays, doves, cardinals, everybody. Where a lot of other feeders limit some of the birds. Tray feeders are cool for everyone. So those are just a few of the options. If you have problems, if you're trying to feed mealworms or bark butter bits and the starlings are getting into there, we have feeders that will keep the starlings out but still let the bluebirds in. So this has a little opening on the side here so that bluebird can pop right in there, but it's too small for the starlings. Whatever you need, we have it. So as far as nesting, bluebirds are secondary cavity nesters. What that means is they can't build a nest. First, they are cavity nesters, so they nest inside something. They can't, like a woodpecker would go and drill a hole to nest in. Bluebirds are not capable of doing that. So they're relying on abandoned woodpecker holes for houses. Again, what have we done when those trees die? We're like, oh, chop it down. If you have a tree that dies and the top breaks out, if you're able to keep that tree standing, you know, you're not going to risk your house or something, highly recommend leaving those trees. Let those woodpeckers make those holes in them, get those bugs out of there. It'll make a lot of houses for a lot of our birds and other wildlife. But because it's so limited, bluebird number, the population had gotten pretty sad. So we kind of got involved, got people to start putting up bluebird houses, which has helped to really bring back the bluebird population. So one of the things we're going to talk about with bluebird houses is what you need when you're looking for a bluebird house. So you're going to look for one that has some roof overhang here. You're looking for one that you can pop open, preferably. This isn't a requirement to be able to open it from the top, but you definitely have to be able to open it somewhere. So this one would be okay if it were just the side. The reason I prefer the opening at the top is when you have bluebirds, I'm also the St. Mary's County coordinator for the Maryland Bluebird Society. So as a coordinator, one of the things we ask is that if you have bluebirds nesting, that you monitor that nest box by at least once a week taking a peek in it. The way I take a peek in mine, when I have it on its pole, it's about 5 feet high. So I can't very easily see in there. I take the flash, turn it on my phone, hold it over the top and snap a picture. What I'm looking for is to make sure that everybody's still alive in there. If one of those babies were to pass, then I'm going to pop it open on the side and scoop that baby out. If a baby passes, mom cannot get it out of the nest box. The only thing she can do is tuck it down along the side where it's then going to kind of attract other little critters to it. So you're actually helping the bluebirds out by checking that. One of the other things you're going to look for is bluebirds nest 3 times a year here in Southern Maryland. So that last nesting is happening in August when it's pretty hot. So you're going to be looking for cross ventilation. This has a hole here at the top and one on the side. What that's going to do is let the heat rise and get that out of there so it's not quite as hot. You will notice that last nesting of the year, Mom doesn't even spend a whole lot of her days in the box. It's hot enough that those eggs will go ahead and cook during the day by themselves. You may sometimes catch her just hanging there with her mouth hanging out because it's so hot inside. She's just kind of basically plugging the hole and keeping the heat in. Other times she's going to be up in a tree. Something comes near the nest box, she'll come in. And then at night, she'll be back on those eggs. So don't worry about that if you see that last nesting. Every year I'm like, I don't know if that last one's going to nest. She hasn't spent a lot of time there. Every time it does, she seems to have it figured out without me. But so you're also looking, I don't think you can see this, but there's 4 little corners cut off here. So if water were to get inside, it's going to drain out. You also want to make sure that your house is an actual bluebird house. If the hole is too large, it's going to let those European starlings in there. So you want to make sure it is sized for the bluebirds. And I always have to look that up. It is a 1.5 inch opening is what we're looking for bluebirds. And with that said, if you have a house that the hole is too large or something's got in there and chewed it, we do have little rings. These are little metal rings that you can put on there. You just screw those in there and that'll resize the hole correctly. So double check that. Houses can be made of wood. This one is made out of a recycled material, actually made out of recycled milk cartons. But we do have wooden ones as well that have all those same features that you're looking for. Okay, so then where to put the house? Everybody wants to tack it on a fence or tack it onto a tree. That's the absolute worst places to put a house. The biggest predators of the nesting bluebirds is snakes and raccoons. Either one of those can scurry right up that tree, right up that fence post. So we want you to put that bird house, that bluebird house, on a metal pole. You want the opening to be about 5 feet high, and you want it facing out into an open space, at least 4 feet from any trees, sheds, deck rails, anything a snake or raccoon or cat could come up and launch themselves over onto the house. So you're going to find that tree nearby there, at least 4 feet away, and pay attention that if you put that house up right now, those branches are going to continue to grow as we go into the summer. If they come out over the top, a snake can very easily come and drop right down onto that house. So make sure as you place it, you're thinking about how far out those branches are going to grow here in the next couple months. The easiest way to mount it is just on a pole like this. This one screws right into the ground. And then you want this style baffle. This is what we call a stovepipe baffle. Our squirrels can't get up there, but squirrels aren't a huge issue because we're not putting any food near there. The bigger issue, as I mentioned, are those snakes and raccoons. So that's why we're going to use this style baffle. We're going to mount the house right above it. Just leave about 1 inch or so space between the bottom of the house and the baffle. We want that baffle to wobble so when a raccoon does try to come up there, it doesn't give them anything stable to grab onto. As far as placement, I mentioned that we want that 4 feet from anything, trees, fences, anything like that. We want the opening facing out into some wide open space. When the adults go to leave the nest, they're going to pop their head out there, look around for safety, hawks, things like that before they fly. And they're going to be making a lot of trips in and out of there as they're feeding their young. So you want to, we used to say, oh, it needs to be faced a certain way. We've realized that's not nearly as important as making sure you have that safe distance and you have they get a good visual before they leave the nest. So we've got our predator guard on there. We've got our nest up now. So now the nesting process. This is really cool to watch. So first of all, back up a little bit. Right now, you may have through the winter noticed your bluebirds were all living together and all was well. And all of a sudden now, the males start chasing each other off. So bluebirds are one of our first nesters of the year. And in February, they start laying claim to their homes. So they're getting a little more aggressive with each other. You'll also see something happening on your feeders where you'll see the male sitting there flapping his wing and the female kind of flaps back, and they're just kind of flirting with each other. You'll quickly notice, I have noticed that I do have one pair that have already connected, and anybody else flies in and he's going to get the boot out of there. He can still come and eat, but he's not allowed to get too close to her. So you're going to, if you haven't already noticed that behavior happening with your feeders, and it's not just going to be the bluebirds, you're going to see it with a lot of the other ones, you know, flying at each other, chasing each other away. So it's just part of it's your sign that spring is really coming. So nesting box. So the male is going to spend some time. He'll be sitting up on a tree, a shed, something. He'll keep going to these boxes and leave, and then he'll go to this one and leave. He's going to spend days watching and picking the one that he thinks is best. It's so cool when you see this part. Then he decides to bring her and show her the nest box. Sometimes he has one picked out. Sometimes he has a couple, and he's going to let her choose between the two. But mom has the final say whether she thinks it's a good choice. So what'll happen is they'll both come to the nest box. She's going to go inside. He'll sit on the top. He'll be leaning over the top, chattering away at her. She's in there a long time. I always say it's like she's laying out the furniture plans, taking the curtain measurements and everything. But you're going to see it play out, and she'll make the final call. If they've chosen another one, they'll leave there, and he'll go and show them the other one. And then she'll make the call which one. They may not start building right away, but if you see this happen, the next day go and take a peek in your nest box, and you may see a piece of pine straw or dry grass in there. That's the rent deposit. If that has been put in there, they've put that in to lay claim to their location. You're not always going to get a rent deposit, but most of the time you're going to see that rent deposit. So when you see that in there, it's kind of cool. Just leave it alone. She's put her deposit down. Then it still may be a couple weeks before they ever build in there. They're still going to be hanging out, watching the nest. And then all of a sudden, one morning, it's like somebody flips a switch and she starts building. Dad's up here. He's the cheerleader. He's going to do nothing to help build that nest. He's really watching guard while she's building the nest. He's going to make sure nobody else comes around. And she'll spend a couple days. Sometimes it's 2-3 days. Sometimes it takes her a good week. You're going to look in there. The last thing, it's a very pretty nest. It's all dried grasses, a lot of pine needles here in Southern Maryland, but it'll be a very neat woven nest. If you get an ugly nest in there, you know, with a little trash, everything else, then we need to talk, because then you probably have house sparrows and we don't want that in there. If you get a nest in there that has a layer of moss in there, that's still a cool bird. Then you need to come in and get you another bluebird house, because then you've got either a chickadee or a titmice nesting in there. Still cool birds, but your nest is occupied now. So you're better off to put up another one to still give your bluebirds a chance. Worst case scenario, if you're not able to put up another one, the chickadees and titmice only nest once a year. So you still have a chance for your bluebirds to nest a couple more times in that box. They build a nest and you've been watching and you've been checking on it and all is good, and all of a sudden they disappear. And then you start calling us. They were building a nest, they're gone. Should I tear it out? Nope, they are off on their honeymoon now. Quite often it happens, they disappear for 2, 3, 4 days, and you're just about to give up hope, and all of a sudden they come back. When you see her in the nest box that day, you're going to go later that afternoon. They lay their eggs in the morning. Later that afternoon, you're going to pop in there and peek, and you'll probably find you have a pretty little blue egg in there. Then you can watch the next day or the day after you check, and there's 2 or there's 3. They lay 1 egg a day. They lay them typically in the morning. So I usually do my nest checks in the afternoon, knowing she's not going to be in there, because they don't start setting until they've laid a full clutch. Traditionally, it's 4 to 6 eggs is what they lay. You're going to know you looked on Tuesday and there were 4 eggs, you looked on Wednesday and there were 5, and you looked on Thursday and there's still 5. You're going to count Thursday as the first day of setting. Once she has laid all her eggs, she's immediately going to start setting. She's going to set on those eggs for about 12 to 14 days. She's going to come out and eat. You're going to see him take food to her. It's really sweet. Or you'll see her out eating and him bringing her mealworms and things. So he is very much an attentive dad, even though he didn't help with the hard labor of building the nest. He was guarding. They're going to incubate those eggs for about 12 to 14 days. I have noticed in our later summer nesting, our last one, a lot of times that tends to be a little bit on the lower side here in Southern Maryland. I think they just cook a little faster in the heat. So you're going to know because you marked down the first day of incubation, and then you've been checking at least once a week just to make sure. To back up a minute there, because she didn't start setting until she laid all those eggs should hatch the same day. If you look in there and, oh, great, they're all hatching, and you look tomorrow, and yep, everybody's hatched but that 1 egg, I want you to wait 3 days till you're positive it's 3 days, and then you're going to open that nest box, reach in with a plastic spoon and scoop that egg out of there, toss it off into the woods. If that egg didn't hatch, it's not going to. It's going to lay there and decay, again, draw in bugs and things, and risk the lives of the other babies. The only way mom has to get that egg out of there is to tuck it in the side of a nest box, or she can crack the egg and carry it out. If she cracks the egg, all that bacteria now has exposed the other babies, things like ants and that, bugs coming up. So you really are helping them by doing these checks. When you start checking the nest boxes, you're going to notice the birds flying at you, clacking. It's amazing how loud their little beaks can be. They'll get over it. What I do is when I do my nest checks, I give them their live mealworms after that. So that's kind of my thank you to them for letting me check. But you really are increasing the life of the other ones by keeping an eye on what's happening in that box. If at any point you look in and a baby has passed, we need to take that out because again, that's too big for her to get out of the box. So she has to just push it off to the side. So you want to get that baby out for her so that you keep those remaining ones healthy. After 12 days, we're not going to open that nest box anymore. If we open the next nest box, we may frighten the young. If we do, they're likely to pop out of that hole. They're still too young to be on their own. You can pick them up and put them back in, and about the time you shut the door, you'll see they're out again. Once they have learned the exit, it's hard to keep them in. The one thing I will recommend, if that were to happen, somebody fledged early, put them in there, put a cloth over the hole for 10 or 15 minutes. Hopefully they will settle down enough that they'll stay, but you're watching those dates. So you know when you've hit 12, if you lose track, that time you open the nest box, normally every time you open it, those little mouths are open, feed me, feed me. They don't care who, just somebody feed me. The first time you open that nest box and it's silence, they have learned the stranger danger. So now is the time where you're risking forcing them out of the nest early. So if that happens at 10 days, if that happens at 11 days, just stop. No more nest checks. You still have a good idea when they're going to fledge. While they're in there, both mom and dad are going to be feeding. You're going to see them all day long, sun up to sundown, in and out of the nest. In the beginning, mom will spend her nights in there because the young aren't able to regulate their body temperatures. We get calls all the time. They keep coming out of the nest and they're taking food in, but they're bringing it back out. I don't think they're feeding the young. Bluebirds are extremely neat housekeepers. Every time a baby bird eats, it poops. When they come in and bring food, the poop is in a little mucous membrane sac. They will pick up a sack of that poop and take it out somewhere. They typically find the same spot. They don't just take it out and drop it. They take it with a purpose and put it somewhere. I've heard stories of them using people's car to place these little sacks on, people's shed, but they will find a location where they're going to dispose of the poop. I've never been fortunate enough to figure out where their poop spots are, but they'll feed them and they'll carry it out. Both mom and dad are responsible for feeding. Both mom and dad have diaper duty. So don't worry when you see them going in and taking something back out. So at the 18 days, they fledged. When we set up that nest box, I mentioned we want it 4 feet from anything those predators can get to. Along those same lines, we want a tree or bush nearby. So look, 20, 30 feet or so away. Make sure you've got a bush or a tree. When those babies leave the nest, they can't really fly yet. So it's going to take a couple days to get their wings under them. Mom and dad are going to call them out. Usually it happens early in the morning and usually you never get to see it. I've only ever once quickly saw one pop out. But they're then going to call them all over to a tree, a bush, somewhere, get them to safety. So although we want that open space, we still want to have something nearby they can get them to shelter. Within a couple days, they'll have their wings under them. They'll get them higher into a tree. If you're trying to find where they are, if you have pine trees around, look up into those pine trees. A baby bluebird looks just like a pine cone up there. They've got little speckled chests, so they will use those pine trees to sit them on a branch up there among the pine cones. And so if you keep watching, they're going to be coming to your feeders. This is where it's advantageous if you're feeding them too. They're going to be coming, grabbing things, and they always go in that direction. With time, watching them, you'll be able to spot your young ones up there. Now that they've left the nest, now it's dad's job. He's responsible for teaching them to hunt, teaching them to find food, teaching them to fly. Mom's job is to start on that nest. So as soon as those baby birds fledged, and again, you have a really good idea when that happened. If you lost count, you're going to know because your bluebird house suddenly seems eerily quiet. There's just no activity. You're going to go out, pop that side open, clean it out. You can just use a little paintbrush and brush everything out. You're going to be amazed how clean that bluebird house is. You're not going to find poop stuck all over it or anything. You can brush it out, close it up. It's ready for number 2. So while dad's taking care of the young, mom's job is to start building nest number 2. And a lot of times she does that just within a day or 2 of them fledging. She's back on duty again. So you'll see dad come into the feeders. With time, once the babies start flying, and again, you have those feeders set up, you have perches on your feeders, he'll bring the babies right to your feeders and he'll just go and feed them 4 or 5 of them at a time. If mom comes down occasionally, she will feed one, but that's not her job now, that's his job. So if one of them comes seriously begging to her, she may pop them something, but she's working on getting her nutrients built back up for the next batch. It's all on dad. Now, a cool thing is when she does raise that second batch, sometimes the young from the first will even come and help feed the second batch, which is really cool to see. You'll also see where the young will come and sit on the nest box because they know mom's in there and they want to be with mom. And dad will have to come and give them a boot off the nest box to get them away because we don't want them drawing attention to other birds and critters. So it is really amazing just to watch and see all this play out. The first time you see him show her the nest, you're going to see it plays out just like I told you, and you're going to be so amazed. But how they figure it out, I don't know, but they've got it. Okay. So the importance of, let me show you this one first. So this is just a little chart. Hopefully you'll be able to see that one. So I mentioned the beautiful blue egg there, and then we've got them at 3 days old, no eyes in there. It's just these little pink things. Here we are at 10 days where they're starting to get their feathers on them. And you're starting to see a little color coming in. And then this is what they look like when it's almost time to fledge, about 17 days. When baby birds leave the nest, they are full grown. They're the same size as the adults. They tend to look smaller to us because all of their feathers aren't grown in yet. But body size, they're the same size as the adults. It's most deceiving because their little tail feathers are much stubbier in that. But they're going to be full size. You'll notice when you're seeing them out around, they're going to have that speckled chest. In the beginning, you can't tell who's going to be a male, who's going to be a female. But with time, that color will come out and it's very distinguishable then. So the importance of monitoring. Non-native species are one of the biggest threats. Let me show you a picture of this. This is what I often refer to as parking lot birds. These are house sparrows. These are the ones you see at Lowe's. They're in the middle of Walmart. If you can't see it well, Google that, a house sparrow, because we want you to be aware. If you have bluebird houses, we really want you to be aware of what house sparrows are. They will get in a nest box. They will kill bluebirds, adult bluebirds, destroy the eggs. We never want to let them nest. If that nest is being built and you're not positive that it's bluebirds, it's looking kind of trashy, I'm going to ask you to snap a picture and email it or stop in and let us take a look at it. If it's a house sparrow in there, we never want to let them nest. They really are one of the biggest risks to bluebirds. So you're going to clean that nest out. You're going to do things like prop it open for a couple days, anything you can do to keep them from nesting there. We don't want to continue increasing that population. You can do a little bit of Google research. If you're running into issues with them continually nesting, you can use traps, things to get them out of there. That's kind of up to every person, has to make that call of what they can get themselves to do. Those birds are not protected, so it is not illegal to kill them. But again, everybody would, I'm just going to leave that there and let you research that a little more if you need to figure out what you are capable of doing or can do. But never let them nest. At the very least, if it means taking the bluebird house down, that's a better option than letting them nest. So again, if you have house sparrows, we do have things we can help. If you've already got bluebirds nesting and then the house sparrows come along, we can do things like build sparrow spookers, which is basically we use this iridescent strips to hang down on the top of the bluebird house just so it touches the top. Doesn't faze bluebirds. Sparrows don't like it. So that's one trick. We have these here. These little tubes that can be added to the top, to the front of your hole of your bluebird house. House sparrows don't like to go into a tube, so that's another option we can do. So if you're having house sparrow issues, definitely come and see us. We'll work with you to try to get those resolved. That can be a real struggle. So that is really the biggest enemy. Of course, we have those predators we talked about, but we can shut those down easily with our stovepipe baffle. It gets a little trickier with house sparrows, but it's not impossible. But I just want to make sure everybody is familiar with a house sparrow, because we don't want to be hurting a chickadee or a titmouse or a Carolina wren, our native birds. So again, if you have a question, take pictures of the nest, take pictures of the birds, and we can help you with those. Okay, and that is pretty much all I have. So we're going to open it up for some questions now. Oh, no, I do have one other thing. Thank you. Water. Bluebirds are a member of the thrush family. So they are water loving birds. You want to have water year round. Obviously a bird bath, nice and easy in the spring and summer. This time of year, not so easy. So you need to have either be willing to several times a day, put out fresh water so it's not freezing, or a heated bird bath. If you already have a bird bath that is, say, metal, you can just add a heater to it. When we say heater, it's really a de-icer. If you put your hands in there tomorrow when it's really cold, your hand's going to be really cold. It just keeps it above freezing. So it's thermostatically controlled. We'll click on and off. Has to have an electrical outlet. We get asked all the time, is there not a battery or a solar option? No. Solar would not do the trick. Solar is only going to power when the sun's shining. So at night, your water would still freeze up. So you have to run a cord, basically the same extension cord you would use for your Christmas lights. You're just going to run it to your heater. And then we also have a couple different styles where it's the bird bath with the stand. The heater is built inside. I use those year round. I just unplug them in the spring, plug them back in the first time it freezes. So definitely think about adding a heated bird bath, or get in there and a couple times a day, put some fresh water, not warm water, just room temperature water out for the birds. Bluebirds start in the fall and they're looking for a couple things: a place to shelter, a place for food sources. When there's snows on the ground and that, it's hard to find sources. Obviously, insects aren't plentiful. Right now, there's still berries out there, but it's not going to be a few more days probably until they have depleted the berry supply. I'm sure you're all noticing how crazy busy your feeders are right now. There's definitely a food shortage in the Northeast, so we're hosting extra birds this year. So have those feeders go and have that water, and then a spot for them to get in out of the cold into a shelter. And that's going to be the things that you really need to help entice them to stay. Then you've got that nest box up. So come February, as they start pairing off, you already have a house, and most likely one of those pairs is going to decide to use that house. One thing I didn't mention too, I could talk bluebirds forever if you hadn't noticed. If you want to set up multiple houses, you want 150 yards between them. Sometimes you're like, oh, I don't have that much space, but I'd really like to have two, especially if you have a chickadee or somebody comes along and snags it first. In that case, just try to get them out of sight of each other. Put one in the backyard, one in the side, one in the front. I have probably at any given spot in my yard, there's 3 or 4 that can be seen. You know, you can stand at one and see another 3 or 4. I know that they're never going to all be filled with bluebirds, and that's okay, because this one will have titmice, this will be bluebirds, this will be chickadees. The reason they're okay with other species and not other bluebirds is because they don't want to risk a food shortage. So the primary food for a bluebird is insects that they catch on the ground. They would be fine. You could put a tree swallow house back to back, and if you had that, the tree swallow and the bluebird will be happy to share, because tree swallows are catching their food in the air. So it's not a food competition. So even though I have those houses, I know they're going to let a chickadee or titmice or wrens, because that's not their primary food. So just keep that in mind. But again, if you want to set up multiples, snap pictures of your yard, do a video, just bring it right in on your phone to either of our stores, and we can help walk you through all that. And we will pull up Google Maps if we need to and look down on your yard and point out some good places for planting them. We even have a feederscaping program, which is a $50 fee. We come out and we'll even install the houses for you. We'll come out, help you pick out locations for feeders, houses, whatever. Then you come in, get what you want, and we'll come back again and put it all out for you. So Now I think I'm done and we can go to questions.
All right, we have a few questions typed in already. And if anybody, while we're answering these questions, if you want to type it in the chat, if you look down on the bottom of your screen, if you haven't done this before, there's a chat icon. Just click on that and then look to the right of your screen and you'll see a little white area where you can just type your questions in. So I will start at the beginning of this. The first one is, what kinds of berries do bluebirds like? Please don't say poison ivy.
Well, I won't say that then, but yes. Just about any kind of berries. I will caution, there is one berry, help me.
Heavenly bamboo
It's known as heavenly bamboo
or nandina.
or nandina. Those berries are poisonous, and a lot of landscapers like to put them in because they are a pretty winter berry. If you have any of those, again, if you're not sure what it looks like, Google that one, nandina or heavenly bamboo. If you have those berries, cut those berries off, drop them in a bag, throw them away, because those are toxic to birds. But other than that, your holly bushes, I was watching a bunch of robins and cedar waxwings in the berry bushes the other day, the holly bushes, and in the middle of them was one little bluebird bopping around in there. So about any of the berries, you're going to really see them eating the berries right now. They seem to wait for a good frost. Once they get that frost, it kind of ripens the berries for them. So yeah, we are lucky here that we have so many hollies because it is a nice natural food source for a lot of the birds. If this snow does come in, take a walk outside and look where you've got holly bushes, and you're likely to catch it full of robins and cedar waxwings. And if you've never seen a cedar waxwings, this is the perfect time to get to see one. And their name explains them. They look like they're made out of wax. A beautiful bird.
Wow, okay. All right, here's the next one. Is there a nesting blend mix like the winter blend seed? And when will it be available in the store?
There is. So the nesting blend will be out around the beginning of March. We kind of play with it, watching the weather here in Southern Maryland. We don't seem to have that where we go from winter to summer. So, but yeah, beginning of March, you will see that come out. And what we'll do is just swap out, you move the winter blend out. If you still have winter blend at the end of the season or at the end of the fall, you still have nesting blend, totally okay. Go ahead and use it up. But the nesting, for those who don't know, winter blend is packed full of high fat foods. So when we bring out our nesting blend, it has more calcium and proteins and things for stronger egg development. So it's nice that you can either mix it in with your other foods. You can put it in a tray feed or a tube by itself. You can use it as a supplement, a food by itself. Would you reach me that bag there, Chip? For those who don't know, this is what the winter blend looks like right now. And so they just come in these nice small bags that you can either feed separately or use it as kind of a supplement. But yeah, watch for our nesting blend, and it will come in our cylinders as well. And that will come the beginning of March.
I never knew there were so many food blends.
Exactly, yeah.
Does it have less nuts in it? Does the winter blend have more of the nuts for the protein?
It does, for the high fat, lots of the high fat.
I spent years just giving the little seeds mixed with the sunflower seeds, and that's all the birds got. But now I think they're spoiled around here.
And I'm sure you see a much bigger variety of birds too.
Yes. Now here's a question, and this made me think. This person says, is it 12 days after they hatch that you should stop checking?
Yes.
Now that made me think, do you have a PDF or something that people can download so that if they had that chart, they would know, okay, 1 to 3 days, this is going to happen, 5 to 6 days,
Yeah.
and they can just check it off like a graph? Do you have anything like that?
You can go, would you reach me that? You can go to the Maryland Bluebird Society, and we have brochures in the store too if you're interested, but you can also go to their page, and they've got like lots of great information there. that you'll find on that. And they'll have a sample. I believe they have a sample of a monitoring chart. I'm not positive on that one. But they do have one other little thing that you can print off. So say you put a Bluebird house. I know we've got some of our La Plata customers that have set up Bluebird trails at their church and parks and things. And you can print out this sign and then laminate it, and you hang it on the nesting pole there, just telling people that it's a monitored box to leave it alone. And that you can print out from the Maryland Bluebird Society. But again, we have their little brochures and that in the store here. But they did just update their website this past year. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, that would help if somebody could just check off the days. And again,
Right.
one of the things that we've all been told all our lives is never go to a nest with eggs in it. And
Right.
so what you're saying is totally different than that they don't.
Exactly.
So you can go right up there to the top and put your phone in and take the picture.
Yeah. So I had one year, I think it was the year before last, that the nest was infested with ants all up the pole and that. So we have cinnamon oil that you can put around the pole. So that kept any more from coming, but those were already there. So I waited for the young to hatch because I didn't want to disturb the egg and, end up shaking it and damaging the embryo. But once those babies hatched, so our post here, you can just unscrew. Your house would be screwed onto this. So what I did was took another house that nobody was in. I made a very ugly bluebird nest the best I could. Once those babies hatched, I took that nest box down. I took the babies out, put them in the new nest, put it back up. And within 2 minutes, mom was right back in there to the young again. So you can touch them. Birds have practically no sense of smell, at least the songbirds and the vultures get it. That's how they find their meals. So you can absolutely, if you need, I'm not going to say go pick up the birds and hold them or any of that. But if you have a situation like that, we had a customer a few years ago where they built in a newspaper box along a busy neighborhood where the kids are always playing and the dogs are always there. And you think how low a newspaper box. We knew that was not going to end well. So the people put a bluebird pole up there. Once the babies hatched, relocated them into the nest box. Mom's going to be watching you when you're doing it, so she knows where those babies went. Again, we're not going to move the eggs. We're going to move the entire nest with the babies if we have to do something like that. The babies will chirp, they'll carry on. If mom, for some reason, looked the other way and didn't see where they went, she's going to hear them and come right back to them. Bluebirds are very loyal to their nest. They are not going to abandon their young. And, if something happens to them, that's one thing. But if they've got a nest of young, they are committed to it.
That's good. But don't touch the eggs.
I wouldn't touch the eggs because if you shake them too hard, you can damage the embryos. So,
Okay.
if you had something weird like that, again, you can always call us and we can talk through it and figure out a solution. But I would wait for them to hatch if we have to do something.
Okay. All right. The next question, can house sparrows fit into the 1.5-inch open hole of the nesting box, or is it larger?
Yeah, unfortunately, house sparrows are a little bit smaller than bluebirds. So they absolutely, if the nest is sized right, it's going to keep the starlings out, but it will not keep the house sparrows out. So we have to get creative. Show you one option we have is, if you know for sure you have house sparrows, you may want to use a box like this. If you notice, it has a rectangle opening there. Sparrows aren't a big fan of going into an opening shape like this, but then also if they were to get in there, the bluebirds can still get out the other side. It wouldn't protect the young, but at least your adults could get back out of there. Otherwise, they get in there and they plug the hole, and so the bluebirds cannot even get out of there, and they will kill them.
Will that cone, Barb, that you talked about, will that keep the sparrows out, that cone that you showed, Or is,
Yeah, if you're having problems, that is one thing that we have found to be pretty successful, is adding that onto it. Again, if you don't have house sparrows, knock on wood, I'm lucky I don't have them where I am, so I don't have to deal with it. But if you are in, I couldn't set up a bluebird house here at the store. I couldn't set it up at our La Plata store because I would be setting them up for failure with all the house sparrows. And I wouldn't be able to, either of those places, I'm not as likely to get bluebirds anyway. But if I put it up the first day, I would have house sparrows nesting. And then we're just increasing the population, so.
okay. Here's a question. Is it okay for the house, the bluebird house, to be near the Potomac River where it is windy?
Yeah, I would, in that case, I would set it up with the back side facing the wind. So the wind is coming against the back side. If we are going to have a lot of really cold and you have them roosting in there, you can do things like cut foam insulation. You get that kind of styrofoam foam in the sheets. You can cut that and bungee wrap that over the top, over the sides of your box. Those side here, stuff a cloth or something in that, or weather stripping works great to put in there. So for roosting season, in the winter time, you can kind of winterize your box doing that. And if I lived somewhere where it was really cold and I did have a lot of winds, I would definitely, for the winter months, do that to give them a warmer shelter.
Now that makes me think of the question, another wives' tale that I've heard is that a box should face like southeast or northwest or whatever. Is that true, that the bluebird house should face a certain direction?
No, we really want to focus more on it facing where they have that open space when they're ready to fly, so that they can look, make sure there's no hawks, cats, things like that sitting around. That's much more important. However, if you are on the water and you're getting a lot of winds off the water, in that case, I would turn it.
Okay. Let's see. How many days until the baby bluebirds can fly to safety?
Once they get them out of the box, it's only a day or two that they get them up into a tree. They don't have great flying and landing skills, but it's enough they can get them up in there within 24 hours. They'll have them way up into the top of a tree.
All right, this question is from Linda Gray. Linda, you might, if you're still with us, you might have to ask this question. It says, please describe the DETERR. Did you want to ask something? You have to unmute, Linda.
Okay, the question I hit the send before I finished. I was asking for a description of the deterrent that you make with the some kind of iridescent fabric to.
Oh yeah, the sparrow spooker. Okay, can you grab me one of the crook arms? Yeah, well, I need them mounted. The mounted one. So we wouldn't put the sparrow spooker on until they already have a nest, because we don't want to discourage them. So we would use something similar to this that we would mount onto the back. Let's see if you can see it there. I think you can see it that way. And then here, Chip, come be my holder. Okay. So it's what we call scare tape, holographic scare tape, and we use it for some different things. If woodpeckers are banging on your gutters and that, we'll put some of this up to distract them. So we would cut strips of this and we're going to hang it down, and we want it to just touch the top of the roof. For whatever reason, starlings, as big and bad as sparrows, as big and bad as they think they are then afraid of that. Bluebirds, it will not faze them. So and you can Google that, sparrow spooker, and you'll find people use it, they'll use straws and chopsticks and whatever. You basically, you want something coming up off the back and across the top, and then you would just cut and tie these little strips onto it.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Linda?
And again, if somebody gets to that point with the sparrows, don't hesitate to reach out to us and we'll help you problem solve.
Okay, we'll devise something to scare them.
Exactly, yes. And all of our sales associates go through a very thorough training. Anybody that's visited them in the store, I'm sure you've been overwhelmed with their knowledge. So any of them can help you. If it's a newer one, they've always got somebody else there with them to help walk them through it.
Here's
Great.
a question I'm sure a lot of people would like to know the answer. What is the best way to keep the snakes away?
So snakes are part of nature, so we're not really trying to keep them away. We just want to keep them out of our houses. They are going to help you with your rodent population. So if you are feeding seeds and things where you might bring in mice or voles, snakes are going to help with that. So they are a good part of nature too. And I'll be the first to admit I'm not a snake fan. They creep me out, but they do good. But we don't want them getting into the houses. So again, that stovepipe baffle is the key to that, is to put that up. Otherwise, what happens is you've watched those babies, you've counted, they're within days of fledging. You look out there and all of a sudden, every species of bird in your yard is flying and hovering around the birdhouses. If anybody's ever had a snake get in, I'm sure you've experienced this. And all the birds will just be carrying on and you know something's going on. A snake has gotten in there to the birds. So if you have that happen once, and I have definitely had that happen, it's horrible to watch. You've raised, and you know, they're usually within a day or two of fledging when it happens. So yeah, definitely, if you're going to put up a house, in fact, the Maryland Bluebird Society asked, if you're going to put a house up and you're going to put it on a tree or a fence, please just don't even put it up, because you are setting them up for failure. And yes, you do have snakes. I have taught classes where people have said, oh, I don't have snakes in my yard. I'm sorry, you're in Southern Maryland, you have snakes. And if you put those houses up unprotected, they're going to come. You may not see it happen. You may assume those babies fledged in that, but there's a good chance that may not have been what happened. So definitely get those houses baffled.
Okay. Here's a question. I'm not sure if you've answered this. It says, what do you use for a winter roost? And is that your bluebird houses that you've been showing us?
Yeah. So bluebirds, I don't think we have any more roosts at this point. We have some that have kind of like stair steppers on them. That's not what bluebirds prefer. They prefer just to pile up on top of each other. So just the same houses you used all spring and summer, they're going to become your winter house. Again, if you're in an area that's very windy on the water, then I would winterize it. Using weather stripping, wrapping that insulation around the foam, I guess it's called foam insulation, not the squishy insulation that itches you, but it's actually the foam sheets of it. And just cut those to side, take a bungee cord wrap around there, because you don't need to be checking in there on the winter. You're not going to be checking on them. And then come late February, you can unwrap it and have it ready. And another thing too, as we get to the end of February, I hesitate to say this, but normally the end of February, I say to go ahead and clean those boxes out, because they may have brought some stuff in there for the winter. But as we get to the end of February, go ahead and clean it out so somebody can start fresh with a fresh nest. The reason I hesitate to say that is it's probably been about 5 years ago. Anybody that was here probably remembers that crazy March snow we got. So at that point, bluebirds had already paired off, and there were a pair of bluebirds sleeping in nests. That storm, a lot of bluebirds froze to death because they didn't have that communal heat anymore. So pay attention to the weather before you decide whether you want to clean that out. But if it looks like spring is truly coming, then you can go ahead and clean that out. If it's looking sketchy, and who knows this winter, you may want to wait till the 1st of March or so. And just, again, just clean it out, use a little brush or paintbrush and just sweep everything out of there so that they can start with a fresh nest.
Okay, how far should a bluebird house be from the feeders?
Good question. So we recommend about 30 feet. And you're going to learn what your bluebirds like, as silly as it sounds. I have them, most of mine are distanced far away from the feeders, probably 50 feet or so, except this one that is too close to the feeders. And we actually put it there because there was an old decorative house years ago that a chickadee decided they wanted to use. So we did not want them nesting in there. We took that one down and we set up another house nearby that is much closer to feeders than I would ever recommend putting one. And every year that's the preferred house that they like to nest in. But I would, rule of thumb, I would say 30 to 40 feet away. You still want it near enough that it's easy for them to bring the young. It's easy for them to grab the food and go to the young, but not close enough that there's going to be a lot of activity around it. So yeah, 30, 40 feet is probably the minimum I would recommend.
Okay. Will bluebirds be disturbed by lawnmower or weed whacker noise?
No. If you're cutting the grass, they may come and click, click, click at you once there's eggs in there or the babies have hatched, but it's not going to bother them.
Okay. Are broken up chicken eggs shells of any interest or good for birds? I guess, like, you know, if you were going to be putting that in your compost pile.
Right. So I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, if you're putting it in your compost, that's one thing, but if you're going to use it for bluebirds or any birds, what that would be is for additional calcium. If you're going to do that, you need to crush them and then you need to fry them well to heat it up to kill any bacteria in that. So yeah, you could do it. Bark Butter Bits has the added calcium to it, and it's a much easier way to go. As does that nesting blend, or if you use any of our blends that say plus on it, there's added calcium carbonate in those. So that's a better way, or an easier way anyway, to get the calcium into them.
Now, Barb, tonight we have people, it seems like, from all over the state of Maryland and as far away as West Virginia. If people find that there's something that they would like to buy from your store, can they call the store and order something and have you ship it to them? Or can they talk to somebody about some of the things you've mentioned tonight and buy something over the phone?
Yeah, actually, we have an online website that they can go to. Let's see if we can get this so you can see it. I don't know that you can.
I'll write it down and share it tomorrow in an email.
Okay. Yeah, it's mywbu.com/St. Mary's County. If you're on our Facebook page, you'll even find the link to our website there. But we do have an online store and we ship all over the place.
Okay. And then if they have any questions, they can send you an email. Would it be to that same
Yeah,
site?
they can email. The easier thing to do, truthfully, is to call the store though. So if they have questions about something,
Okay.
they can call the store, because that way the team can check the actual inventory and that. Obviously, with this crazy pandemic, it's kind of changed the products that we can keep in stock all the time.
Okay, that's good. Now, one other thing, since we were talking about the food, you said that on the East Coast, the food is in short supply of the birds, for the birds. Is that because of all the building we've had going on, or what did you mean by that?
Yes, so this year is what we call an eruption year. Basically, there was a shortage of food in the Northeast due to all the rains we had in the spring. So the pine cones and trees like that didn't produce as well. So when that happens, we get to reap the rewards of that. And birds that typically don't even come to Southern Maryland will travel a little further south. So they go as far south as they need to find a steady food source. So this year we're seeing red-breasted nuthatches, purple finches, pine siskins, lots and lots of pine siskins. Cool little birds, but they're ones we typically don't get to see in our yards here.
Okay.
So you may be noticing some that just don't look like the ones you usually see, or you're hearing sounds that are different from your, typical cardinals and chickadees and that. So yeah, it's a really cool time to be feeding. For those that are new to bird feeding, it's been a great time to get started because there is so much activity at our feeders.
That's interesting. Okay, it looks like we have a couple more questions. Would you recommend putting houses in the middle of a pasture with farm animals? The animals would most likely rub up against the post.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what kind of animals they would be in that. It'd probably be better if you could put it bordering the outside of the fence. What that would do is allow them to use the fence to seek out food, but they've got, the horses or cows or whatever aren't going to be rubbing and knocking the posts over.
Okay. Let's see. Does a bluebird nest need to be somewhere sunny?
Yeah, you want it out from under trees. If for no other reason, because those snakes can come down. So my bluebirds switch houses every time they nest for the 3 seasons. Rarely do they use the same nest twice. And I do notice that the last nesting of the season almost always takes place in the front yard where it's more shaded. So it's not under a tree, but it is more heavily treed, so they're getting more shade. Okay. So don't tuck them back under a tree, but if you can, put them where they're going to get some afternoon shade, and that is going to be helpful, especially for that August nesting. Have you ever moved your nests during the season? Like, have you ever moved your post purposely? You always post in the same? No. The only time I would move it is, say I put this box up here and nobody nests in it for a couple years, then I would either try turning it on this one I mentioned to you. So you could have it facing this way and then nobody's nest. And it can be something as simple as just turning it a different direction to bring them in. Or I've had to move them because maybe a tree grew out, but not during the nesting, not during the time somebody's nesting in it. The only time was the one time when those ants were going to eat those poor babies alive. Then it kind of became a life and death situation, but still the box stayed in the same location. It was just a different box and a different nest. Now you're talking, you mentioned that the babies will fly up into the pine trees and that they look like the pine cones. What protects them from the snakes and the raccoons and all that, as the fledglings? Yeah, at that point they can fly enough. So if something were to be coming up a tree, you will see a crazy commotion in your yard. It'll usually be led by the blue jays, kind of your guardians of your yard. They'll alert all the other birds. If you're outside and you hear the birds just carrying on, kind of follow them and you'll usually find the snake or whatever that's going up the tree. But at that point, the bluebirds can get the babies, call them away to fly, and get them far enough away, which is another good thing of why, even if you have natural cavities in your yard, those natural cavities are not protected from snakes and raccoons and that. So even if you've got natural nesting sources, it's still better if you can offer protected ones. It's going to increase the population. A lot of those in those natural cavities are going to be lost. Okay. All right. I have one last comment. This person says that they have had a huge amount of robins this year. Is that unusual? Yes. So robins stay year round. We hear this every year, like the robins came back too early. The robins never leave here in Southern Maryland. Because it's cold and nasty, they tend to go back into the woods where they can dig in the leaves and the mulch and that to find food. When we get nice, warm, wet days, they tend to come out more because it's going to bring up the earthworms and things. And of course the berries they can get too, and they don't need to be tucked away.
That's interesting. Barbara, this is great. The amount of things I've learned about the birds with you is amazing.
Awesome.
Now tonight I learned about this spring mix. I learned about the winter mix, but I didn't know that they needed calcium in the bird food. So
Yeah,
that'll be the next thing that I buy from the store.
exactly.
So does anybody have any more questions for Barb this evening? We appreciate everybody coming out, and I think that about wraps up our program for tonight. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll be having another program. Is it March 10th? It's either March 6th or March 10th, but it will be on our website. And when I send out the follow-up email tomorrow, I'll put the information about the Bluebird Society and the next course for it. So we hope you all can join us again. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Barb. Have a good evening.
You too. See y'all later.
Bye-bye. Be careful in the snow.